everyone. I think we are good to start. And I would like to request everyone to please switch on their cameras so that we can have a better interaction. Okay, I think we can start. So hello everyone. I am Tanya Mangla, a volunteer at Adore, and I wholeheartedly welcome each one of you in today's webinar on conflict management by Ms. Taranjeet Kaur Chohan. Adore is a global voluntary platform which aims to motivate youth to identify and undertake positive activities for a better society. We are a community network of university students and professionals who work with students so that they grow up as successful professionals and responsible citizens. And now I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our speaker for the webinar, Ms. Taranjeet Kaur Chohan. Ma'am is an image consultant and a soft skill trainer, and she guides people to enhance and upgrade their appearance through clothing, grooming, body language, communication skills, and etiquettes. And she also assists in achieving and owning core skills and knowledge required in professional, personal, and social life. Ma'am has also worked as a lead cabin crew in Indigo for almost a decade. And currently, she's a facilitator with Nandi Foundation for Mahindra Pride and classrooms and conducting her own sessions and webinars. So I welcome you, ma'am, and I request you to please enlighten us with your knowledge. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for the introduction, and thank you, Adore team, for having me here. I would like to take this opportunity to thank each one of you for being present, taking out time, and it's a great honor for me to share my knowledge with each one of you. Welcome, and thank you for keeping your cameras on. I would like to see each one of your camera to be on. I would really appreciate it. So we'll start with the presentation now. Am I audible, clearly visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Are you all being able to see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, so we start now. So today's presentation is all about conflict management. So let me ask each one of you, what do you mean by conflict? Anybody who can tell me? What do you, when you hear this word conflict, what do you think about it?
Usually when there's a conflict, it entails a disagreement of opinions, values, ideas, and so on.
Absolutely right. Anybody else?
The value of teamwork.
Sorry?
The value of teamwork.
Yes, absolutely right. So today we will be talking about conflict and how to manage the conflict. As we all know, we all are human beings. We have different mindsets, different values, different ideologies, and different beliefs. And due to which we at times get in conflict with the other person because we tend to not understand the other person and their values and interest. So that is the reason why we have conflict. Now moving ahead, objective of this session would be define the term conflict. Then we will identify what are the causes and sources of conflict, describe the different types, levels, and stages of conflict, discuss the effect of conflict, understand the process and ways to manage conflict, understand Thomas Kilmann theory of conflict management, and compile appropriate tips for conflict resolution. So before we start, let's break the ice. Okay, so I'll stop the share now and come on, introduce yourself. Anybody can, take the lead, introduce yourself, your name, where are you from, and why, what are the expectations from this session and why you attending this session.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Gagan. I'm from MP, and I wanted to learn from this session that many of the times, like we encounter such conflicts and we'll have to resolve that. So I think will be having some idea after attending this session that how can I better manage the conflict, resolve that, and also it will help me in future. Like so, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gagan. Thank you. And you will be learning how to manage the conflict. Anybody else would like to introduce yourself?
Hello, ma'am. This is Rishika from Calcutta. So I have joined this webinar of to like conflicts is something which we can face anytime, and we do face every day usually in our life. So it is really needed to be managed properly so as to get to a proper solution. So I am here to learn about it. So really hoping for the session.
Thank you, Rishika. Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Well,
Simran.
anyway, my name is Simran, and I belong from very humble background, Punjab, and I want to gain knowledge about soft skills, and I'm very keen to learn new things. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to gain the knowledge. That's all about you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me over here and sharing the platform with me. Anybody else would like to introduce yourself? It's nice to know each other, you know. Yes,
Hello, ma'am.
Kanika. Hello,
My
hi.
name is Kanika Agrawal. I'm from Lucknow, and I do like managing human resource. So this is something that I must have an insight of for which the humans generally we actually fight, we conflict, whether at the professional level or at the personal level as well. So this was something that I'm here for.
Thank you so much, Kanika. So yes, all of you, you will be getting a lot of insight about conflict management and how to manage the conflict. So let me tell you one thing. When we talk about conflict, we always have two people involved, right? Two or more people involved who are disagreeing about opinions, about their interests, about their values. They have different mindsets. They have been brought up in different manner. They belong to a very different background, right? They have difference in opinion. But tell me, do we also not have conflict within ourselves? We do, right? So that is called intrapersonal. When we are fighting with our own opinions, our own goals, we actually do not know what to do in life, how to do certain things, how to manage our own emotions. So we will be covering that also. How to understand yourself also, and how to manage your own intra conflict that we are facing in daily lives. There was my screen visible when I shared it right now?
Yes, it was. It was.
Okay. Thank you, each one of you, for introducing yourself. Now, talking about conflict, what is conflict? Conflict is a social process when two or more parties perceive a divergence of interest or incompatible goals and values. Every
Ma'am,
person,
sorry to interrupt. Your screen is not visible now.
it is not. Okay, just 1 second. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Now it's visible.
Thank you so much, Rishika. No problem. Okay, so talking about conflict, we will understand what is the definition of conflict. So conflict is a social process when two or more parties perceive a divergence of interest, which we have already spoken about. Everybody has a different interest. When we're talking about interest, what do you mean? What are the interests that we are talking about? In interest, we can mean that I have an interest in playing games. I have an interest in saving my time and not wasting it. Some people must be interested in watching movies and talking about families, that I would like to give more time to the family, and the other person might think that no, work is more important, we can come back and give time to the family. You know, different person have different perspective and they have different interests, and also different people have different goals in life, different values, how they have been brought up, and the culture they have been following, because of which when you interact with the other person, you get into a conflict, or you may have a potential conflict, rather, I would say. A conflict is a situation in which two or more individuals, parties, or groups of people have different opinions, might get into collision or disagreement, dispute, controversy, quarrel, argument, fight, battle, or struggle. So this means that, in conflict also there could be different stages, which may start only with a conflict within ourselves. It might take a turn, and you start arguing and fighting with somebody else. And then the worst come scenario is when you have a it reaches a stage of violence where you start fighting with each other, when you physically abuse each other. And we have also seen the countries fighting with each other, getting into wars and getting into battles, right? So now we will understand that what are the causes, or what are the sources because of which the conflict arises. Now, first is individual or cultural differences. So as I said, every individual will be having different goals. Now, today, if I ask what is the goal for you to attend this session, so everybody has a different goal. They have a different perspective. Okay, this is what I'm going to understand out of this situation. This is what I'm going to use after attending this situation. I'm going to use the appropriate ways how to manage the conflict. So this is what we're talking about. Every individual has different opinion, different ideas, different mindset, different upbringing. So because of which we fail to understand the other person and we get into a conflict situation with them. The second could be scarcity of resources. So while I'm taking this session, I will use a lot of understanding from our day-to-day life, so that it makes it very easy for us to understand what exactly we are talking about. So when we talk about resources, what are resources? Resources could be materials, it could be time, it could be anything. So now, giving an example, now there are two teachers working in a school. Now this particular school has only one, what do we call it, projector. One projector is available. Now both the teachers wants to use the projector at the very same time. But how many projectors do we have? We only have one. That means there is a scarcity of resource in the school. The teachers want to use it at the same time. Now because of this external condition also, they are getting into a conflict because they want to use it at their given point of time. She said that, okay, I want to use it at 10 o'clock. Even the other teacher also wants to use it at 10 o'clock. So they are ending up getting into a conflict. Then we are talking about perception. Again, another example I would like to take. Now, if I keep a glass of water, or I would say if I keep a glass of liquid, a clear liquid in a glass, and it is half full, I am saying it is half full. The other person might say, no, this is half empty. The other person might say, okay, this is not water, this is some other liquid that we are seeing. You never know, it's going to be harmful, it's not going to be harmful. So looking at one thing, we all have different opinions, we have different perspective. So as it depends on what upbringing we have been brought into, the culture we belong to, we'll look into the glass and we'll say, okay, and we'll perceive different things, because of which there will be different opinions, because of which there will be clashes. Now, talking about hierarchies, it happens in day-to-day life, at home, also in the organization. When a person who is in power, he tries to impose that power or status to the other person, which initially when you join an organization, your bosses tell you to do something, you're like, okay, he's my boss, I should do it. But over the period of time, you start getting irritated. You said, no, this is not the right thing, or maybe why should I have to do in a particular way? Why can't I do it in the other way, the way I want to? So here, because of the hierarchy, there is a conflict in an organization or also at home. Now, talking about self-esteem. Every people have a self-esteem, right? Few people suffer from low self-esteem, and few people have a lot of high regards for themselves. Now, when there is a time when you have to speak up, because I have a low self-esteem, I do not have that much of courage or confidence. What I do is I avoid the situation. I don't talk about the situation, which rather will not solve the conflict, which will aggravate the conflict to the next level only. Because when you're expected to speak, you're not speaking about it. ऐसा होता है ना डे टू डे लाइफ में भी, कोई हमें एनकाउंटर करता है, बोलता है कि आप बताओ क्या ओपिनियन है, आप बताओ क्या है, बट बिकॉज आई एम नॉट कॉन्फिडेंट अबाउट माई सेल्फ, माई थॉट्स, माई ओपिनियंस, आई डोंट ब्रिंग इट फॉरवर्ड टू द अदर पर्सन, आई डोंट गिव माई ओपिनियन, जिसकी वजह से हमारे बीच में लड़ाइयाँ हो जाती है. Also, second thing is high self-esteem. When we're talking about high self-esteem, as in the person is overconfident, then the person tries to say ki whatever I am saying is right, you have to agree with me. They become very adamant about it. So this is one of the reason and source why we have conflict in our life. Then unclear or too many roles. Now this example is very funny, and it is, from out of my life only. I have a driver. Now, driver, what is the driver supposed to do? He's supposed to drive me to the office and back and, take me wherever I want to go, right? But what happens is, at times I call him, driver ji, aane waqt vegetables le aayega na. If you're going there, please do something. Okay, mera ye stitching karwa do, please jaake. Okay, so he is a good man. He does it for me. But then if I keep giving them the work which he is not supposed to do, one day he'll say, listen, मेरा काम नहीं है मैम ये सब करना, मैं ड्राइवर हूँ, मैं ड्राइवर की तरह ही काम करूंगा, don't give me all this work, right? So here he becomes too, because you're giving him too many roles to play, and the role that he has of a driver, he's not fulfilling that role properly, and his role is clear. That's when we also end up having a conflict. Now talking about pressure, when there are too many roles, not talking about a man or a woman, now I'm talking about a lady here. एक lady mother भी है, she is working also, she is a daughter-in-law, she is wife, she is a daughter, she is a sister, she is playing so many roles, right, in her life. अब क्या होता है, उसके ऊपर कभी कभी इतना pressure आ जाता है कि she does not know how to handle it. At times there are few people who are very good in handling their pressure, right? You give them pressure, they work properly and they work efficiently. But then there are people who cannot take pressure at all. Either they will just quit the job, or they will not do anything, or the second thing is what they will do is they'll burst out, अपना गुस्सा निकाल देंगे, एक वोल्केनो होता है ना, वोल्केनो की तरह burst हो जाएंगे, and that is when the conflict happens. Now talking about the goals and values. I've already spoken about the goals and values. Would you want me to repeat this again? I can do that. Okay, then I'll just, again, giving you an example. Now I'm taking an example of a husband and wife, okay? Now the husband is working for a multinational company. Now his ultimate goal is that I want to do really well and I want to go and settle abroad. Now the wife says, no, I want to stay in India so that I can take care of my family. And what about our kids? How will we settle there? There's no help. What are we going to do there? There's a conflict in goal. You're staying with your partner, but your goals are not aligned, because of which you end up getting into a conflict. Then expectations. क्या है expectations? हर problem का जड़ ही है expectations, right? We expect, at times we expect a lot from our partners. It's not bad in expecting things. Let me tell you, it is not bad if you expect things, but it is bad when you do not communicate to the other person what you are expecting out of them. If it's my birthday, I want a phone, and my husband gets me just bouquet, flowers, cake, and a card, and he gives it to me, I'm happy. But somewhere down the line, I am upset about the fact, how can my husband not give me a phone? These are all a hypothetical situation, right? Now, I get sad. I have a conflict among, within myself. And at one given point of time, I might burst out to him and I would say, you don't understand me. You don't even know what I need or what I want. I don't think so. It's working between us. But have you made sure that you have actually told the other person or your partner what exactly you're expecting out of him? So your expectation needs to be communicated. Then lack of job description. Now you join a company. The company tells you, okay, you are a manager. They hire you for a post of a manager. Now you know what a manager is supposed to do. They're supposed to manage the work. They're supposed to manage his team members. But at times, you've been asked to do other certain things also, which is not in your job. That is when the conflict happens. So what happens is, when you join a company, the company, when they make you sign a bond, they always give you a conflict of interest bond. You have to read all the policies, and you have to understand it, and you have to understand what exactly your job and your role is all about. Otherwise, if there's no clarification of your role, there is bound to be a conflict within you and your organization. Now talking about needs. Now needs जब बात करते हैं, needs है क्या? Every people have different kinds of needs, right? Now there is a philosopher, a psychologist, Maslow. Now we'll talk about, I'll just give some light, put some light upon this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. ये क्या बोलते हैं? There are 3 kinds of needs in life. पहला चीज होता है are your basic needs, which is your physiological needs. एयर चाहिए, एनवायरनमेंट चाहिए, पानी चाहिए, खाना चाहिए, स्लीप चाहिए, रेस्ट चाहिए. योर बॉडी नीड्स इट. ठीक है. सेकेंड इज बेसिक नीड्स, विच इज योर फूड. यू नीड योर फूड, यू नीड क्लोथिंग, यू नीड शेल्टर, राइट. एंड उसके बाद आता है सेफ्टी. सेफ्टी नीड इज ऑल्सो अ बेसिक नीड. सेफ्टी, घर पे सेफ्टी होना चाहिए, बाहर रोड में जा रहे हो वहां पे सेफ्टी होना चाहिए, कहीं काम कर रहे हो वहां सेफ्टी होना चाहिए, रिलेशनशिप में सेफ्टी होना चाहिए. So you need these needs. Every person has different kind of needs. Then we look upon the psychological need. Psychological need क्या होता है? This is when I need a family. I need to be loved. I need to be respected. So सबका अलग अलग नीड्स होता है कि किसी को फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता. आई डोंट केयर अबाउट पीपल. इफ दे डोंट लव मी, इफ आई हैव टू डू माय जॉब, आई विल डू. बट सर्टेन पीपल आर इमोशनल. दे हैव देयर नीड कि मुझे तो मेरी फैमिली चाहिए, मुझे एक रिलेशनशिप चाहिए. आई नीड अ पार्टनर. देयर आर फ्यू पीपल हु डू नॉट हैव अ पार्टनर, और दे डू नॉट वांट अ पार्टनर. Then talking about esteem is again the same thing. Respect. They want to be respected. They want to feel कि लोग मुझे respect कर रहे हैं, मेरी बात सुन रहे हैं, वो होता है. And then is the self actualization need, which is the topmost need of a human being. It is when there is a desire to become the most of what one can be. I am very happy with myself. मुझे पता है मैं जो कर रही हूँ अच्छा कर रही हूँ, and now मैं इतना अच्छा कर रही हूँ कि now I am going out to help people. So these are the different needs. अगर सबके लाइफ में different needs होंगे तो different perspective होगा, different goals होगा, उसके हिसाब से वो अपनी लाइफ को लीड करेंगे. And that is when the other person will not be understanding your needs, and that is when the conflict also happens. Then talking about Crab's syndrome. Has anybody ever heard what is Crab's syndrome? Anybody? अच्छा, क्रैब्स को देखा अगर एक बास्केट में डाल देते हैं, व्हाट डज द क्रैब डू? इफ यू कीप अ लॉट ऑफ क्रैब्स इन अ बास्केट, हैव यू एवर सीन और डू यू नो व्हाट डू? दे ट्राई टू गेट आउट ऑफ इट, राइट? एंड हाउ डू दे ट्राई टू गेट आउट ऑफ इट? दे क्रॉल अप, एंड जो भी ऊपर है ना उसको नीचे खींचते हैं. हैव यू सीन दैट? वो नीचे खींचना चाहते हैं क्योंकि उन्हें ऊपर जाना है. तो ये क्या होता है? क्रैब सिंड्रोम हमारे डेली लाइफ में होता है, स्पेशली एट वर्क प्लेस. There are few people who are so competitive in nature. उनको competition इतना पसंद है, उनको हमेशा जीतना पसंद है कि उस process में they end up hurting so many people and they do not care about it. उनको आगे बढ़ना है तो बढ़ना है. तो ऐसे टाइम पे क्या होता है? You end up having a conflict with lot of people. Now you understood Crab syndrome क्या होता है? Good. Okay. Talking about difference in information, we have already spoken about it. Now difference of information दो चीज से होता है. एक, it is interrelated to perception. You perceive different things. When you are passing on the information, आप अपने perception के हिसाब से pass on करोगे. The second is when you're not listening to the other person properly, or you are listening to the other person properly, but then you have a preconceived notion about that person कि ये तो ऐसे ही है, ये तो ऐसे ही बोलता है. एंड देन आपको जब वो इंफॉर्मेशन आगे फॉरवर्ड करना होता है, आप अपनी तरीके से करते हो. सो देयर माइट बी अ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन यू ऑल. देन टॉकिंग अबाउट पॉलिसीज, एवरी डिफरेंट कंपनी हैव डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ पॉलिसीज. हम जब कंपनी में जाते हैं, दे गिव अस सर्टेन पॉलिसीज दैट वी नीड टू फॉलो. फ्यू पीपल माइट बी विलिंग टू फॉलो एट इन द स्टार्ट, बट देन कभी कभी होता है डिफरेंट पॉलिसीज आ जाती है, एंड देन यू से कि नहीं भाई मेरे से नहीं हो रहा. देन यू हैव conflict with the organization. Then talking about behavior, what is behavior? So कुछ लोगों का behavior ये होता है कुछ कुछ लोगों के क्या करते हैं, like people behave in a certain manner, they have a different way how they react to a certain situation. If there's a conflict happening with me or in front of me, I might be keeping quiet, or I might be listening to the other person, because I feel our relationship is more important. But then if you try to tell something to someone, they might just get agitated and they might just start shouting at you, and then you get into a conflict. Why am I even speaking to this person? I should not even talk to this person. This person does not even understand what's happening, right? So different लोगों का different behavior होता है, जिसकी वजह से there is a conflict. Now we'll be talking about types of conflict. I have covered a lot, so just we'll run through this. Now, what are the different types of conflict? First is interpersonal conflict. When we talk about interpersonal, it is having a conflict with the other person. Why? Other person के साथ क्यों होता है? Because of the cultural clashes. We have already spoken. Because of religious clashes. इतने riots होते हैं, day in day out हमारे country में हम देखते हैं कितने riots हो रहे हैं. So let's not just talk about religious clashes. Then talking about age clashes. Now, हमारे parents के साथ we have a generation gap, right? If you yourself are a parent, you will have a generation gap with your children. Now there's a gap. We need to understand that. Now certain things which is normal for us might not be normal for them, or which is normal for our children is not normal for us. So we do not understand कि कर क्या रहे हैं ये. Some people might think कि party करना is okay, but the other person might think कि no, हमारे culture में ऐसा नहीं होता था, या हमारे age में हम ये नहीं करते थे. But you have to understand that with time everything has to change. So इसकी वजह से age clashes होते हैं. Then values, we have already spoken about different people having different values, because of which we end up having a conflict. Now talking about the organization, एक organization में union भी होता है, management भी होता है, कितना कुछ होता है. So you know union का अपना point of view रहता है कि okay, we have scarcity of resources, we need holidays on particular days. Management बोलता है कि हम तो national holidays ही दे सकते हैं, why should we consider your holidays? So there is always a tiff going on between them. Then we're talking about intra and inter-company rivalry. When we talk about inter-company rivalry, it is a company fighting with the other company. You know, they are in a rivalry with the other company, and they are trying to compete to be the best company. Now talking about intra, अपने company के अंदर ही अपने departments में अपने लोगों में इतना intra अपना इतना conflict चल रहा होता है, which ends up getting into a conflict. Now talking about team, technical team and team, sales and production. Now sale people tells that we are selling, we are getting the orders, but the production is doing nothing about it. And production is saying we already have a lot of manpower, you're not getting us only the orders, how will we make the production? There's always a conflict going on between a company and the teams, managers of different teams. Now there are different teams in an organization. Excuse me. There are different teams in an organizations. Now the different managers have different goals, क्योंकि उनको अपने टीम को बेस्ट करना है. Now they are having a conflict between each other only, amongst each other. Now staff and logistics. कई बार क्या होता है, now I will bring up a point here, an example here, because as you all know that I belonged to an aviation sector. So what would happen, we would always end up having a conflict with logistics. वो बोलते थे मैम 4 बजे हो रहा है ना, आप उसके बाद 2 घंटे में ना आप जाओ दूसरा फ्लाइट ले लो. And we would say 2 घंटे में होगा क्या, we have to go, we have to collect the cash, we have to go to the office, drop it. How do you expect us to go back to the hotel and come and take another flight? And they would say मैम हो जाएगा, आप कर लो. That is one reason we would have majorly. कई बार होता था रात को 12 बजे एक दिन ऑफ हो गया, they would give us early morning flight. तो वो ऑफ का मतलब भी नहीं हुआ ना, because I am landing at 12, the entire day again at 12 I have a reporting. So यहाँ पे हमारी conflict चल रही होती थी. Then talking on national level. Now wealth clashes between poor and rich people. ये तो we all know. Poorer gets poorer, rich gets richer, right? इनके बीच में अपना ही conflict होता है. When we talking, it's not only monetary terms but also resources we are talking about. कई बार people want to get a lot of things because they have money. कई लोग क्या होता है अपना पैसे की वजह से what they try to do is they try to take everything and not leave anything for the poor. इसमें भी clashes होता है. So civil wars. What is civil war? people of the same country fighting with each other over whatever, political हो सकता है, over a land, over states, सबकी अपनी लड़ाई चल रही होती है. Then talking about international, so right now what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, we all are aware of. So international battles भी होते हैं, conflicts भी होते हैं. There's a Cold War and war against terrorism. Now talking about conflict, ठीक है, there has to be a level. अचानक से तो आप लड़ाई नहीं कर सकते ना, कहीं ना कहीं कुछ तो बिल्डअप हो रहा है, तभी तो वो आगे इतना बड़ा होता जा रहा है. एक सीड है, तभी तो वो ग्रो होगा प्लांट की तरह. So that is why we'll understand what exactly are the levels of conflict we are talking about. So when we're talking about levels, I'll give you one more example. Now, hypothetical situation. I shift, मैं एक घर रेंट पे लेती हूँ. I shift there, okay. Now I have recently shifted and मेरे neighbor में old age people रह रहे हैं. There is a old age couple, very old couple staying. Now I shift and we being the youngsters, हम अपना every day we are partying, we are playing loud music and friends are coming over. Now they are getting disturbed at night. ठीक है, पहले दिन उनको irritation हुआ. So first stage is irritation. They started getting irritated. कि what should I do? ठीक है, okay, let's see if they're doing it again or not. And then उसके बाद when they see that this is continuously happening, it turns into annoyance. They say no. Now तो we have to go and talk. तो वो क्या करते हैं, वो आते हैं मेरे को बोलते हैं कि hi beta, how are you? We are happy that you have shifted here, but we would just like to inform you, that you are disturbing our sleep. If you can just put the volume down. आप आस्ते करके रहो, आपके friends आते हैं, इतना शोर मचाते हैं, हमें disturb होता है. हम बोलते हैं okay uncle, no problem. But still, the same thing is continuously happening again and again. आपने logically उनको बोल दिया हमें disturb होता है, right? Now what happens is वो communicate करके गए, फिर भी वो हो नहीं रहा है, फिर भी friends आ रहे हैं, आवाज हो रहा है, सब हो रहा है. Now it goes to the other level, which is anger. Now in this stage, people they do not think rationally. What they do is they become emotional. That these people don't even understand. We are old people. इनको समझ नहीं आता, इतनी बार बोलने के बाद भी. No, we have to take some action regarding this. Now what they do is they circulate a message amongst the committee members that these people have just shifted in and this is what they are doing. ये नहीं चलेगा, ऐसा नहीं होगा. Now out of anger, what they do is they come and they bang on my door. They say कि आपको समझ नहीं आता है, आपको इतनी बार बोला है, आपके घर में मम्मी पापा नहीं है, आपके दादा दादी नहीं है. So it has taken another level only. And at times क्या होता है, जब बाहर भी देखते हैं, कुछ वक्त क्या होता है, it turns into violence. People start fighting with each other. They become violent with each other. Physically abuse करने लगते हैं, लोगों का सामान तोड़ने लगते हैं, उनको घर से निकालने लगते हैं, right? So what is the key here? जब irritation है या annoyance है, anybody is annoyed with you, if they're communicating with you, let's वहीं पे दबा दो matter को. Are we all clear till now? Okay. So now talking about stages of conflict. Again, I'll give you an example. एक होता है latent stage. Latent stage क्या होता है? When a participant is not aware कि there is a conflict. They're not aware only. Now, if you go to a restaurant, a waiter is taking your order. Now, while taking the order, उसने कुछ गलती order ले लिया आपका. Because might be he was not actively listening to you, or might be there was too much rush, or might be he was preoccupied in his thoughts. He has taken the order, but he's taken one or two wrong orders. Okay? Now, the food is getting prepared in the kitchen. Now, the person who's given the order is not aware of the fact, and the manager there is not aware of the fact that they are already getting into a conflict. लड़ाई तो होने वाली है ना, they are going to have a conflict. Now, the staff comes, presents the food on the table. After this, what happens is the man says, this is not what I had ordered. What did you even hear? This is not my order. So what he does is he'll say, call the manager. Now he'll call the manager. Now this is the perceived stage we talk about, where now the participants have got the idea that the conflict exists. In दोनों में लड़ाई है. There is some disagreement. Now the man on the table who placed the order and the staff there, they have a conflict amongst each other. अब क्या होता है, the staff also who had taken the order, he gets scrutinized, and he does not like it. एंजाइटी है, इवन द मैन दे, इवन द मैनेजर डज नॉट वांट एनी कंप्लेंट्स, लेकिन उसको ड्रैग किया जा रहा है, ये हो रहा है. तो दिस इज कॉल्ड द फेल्ट स्टेज, where you actually feel and you feel the stress and anxiety. Then we're talking about the manifest stage. It is when the actual conflict is actually happening, and conflict की वजह से it might take different turns. आप phone calls कर रहे हो, आप feedback लिख रहे हो, or you know there's shouting going on, or there are mails going on. This is the manifest stage. And इसमें क्या होता है, now the manager is calling the staff and he's taking him to the side and is telling, what have you done? You know that I don't like getting into such arguments. Why can't you do your work properly? So this is a manifest stage where the other people who are not even involved in the conflict, they're not even involved, they get to know. You know, बाकी लोग घूम के देख रहे होते, ओके क्या हो रहा है, जरूर कुछ ना कुछ हुआ होगा वहां पे. And then we come to aftermath stage. Now एक solution निकालते हैं, एक resolution करते हैं, इसका कोई ना कोई उपाय निकालते हैं. That is called the aftermath stage. Are we clear? This example was good, or you want me to give another example? You want? Okay, thank you for the thumbs up. Now talking about different views. So traditional view of conflict क्या बोलता था? That all conflict is harmful and must be avoided. Conflict तो खराब है, लोगों का relationship बिगाड़ता है. Let's avoid and not get into any conflict because it is harmful. This is what the traditional view of conflict is. What is the human relation view of conflict? It is the belief that the conflict is a natural and inevitable outcome in any group. इसका मतलब it is natural. अगर दो लोग हैं, it is bound to happen. You cannot stop it. It is unavoidable. So why not thinking about how to prevent it, get into resolution as to how to learn the strategies, how to resolve it. Then comes interactionist view of conflict, which means that just one second. I'm so sorry about that. Is there a lot of background noise?
No, ma'am, it's fine.
No, ma'am.
Actually, they are using the mixer grinder, so I thought that you guys must get disturbed. You will be getting disturbed. Okay, so coming back to the point, now what is the new belief? The belief is that the conflict is not only a positive force in a group, but that is absolutely necessary for a group to perform effectively. Conflicts are not always bad. Now we'll see कि conflict अच्छे भी होते हैं. At times you need conflict in life so that you think about different perspectives and you get creative and you bring new innovation in life. So is conflict good and bad, good or bad? So I just covered that, but still asking. Anybody who thinks कि नहीं, good तो हो ही नहीं सकता conflict? Anyone?
Ma'am, maybe sometimes conflict can enhance our relationships. Because sometimes small conflict happens, and then when we try to resolve it and talk about it, so it enhances the bond between partners and relationships also.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And also when you have a small conflict, it's better to talk about it, no? ताकि वो clear हो जाए, आगे वो piled up मत हो, bottle up मत हो, right? So speaking about this, conflict can be both constructive and destructive. Now talking about being constructive when we say organizational terms, may we call it functional, and destructive could be dysfunctional. Now conflict is constructive when it results in clarification, serves as a release to penny up emotions and stress, when parties understand each other's needs and use the conflict to build cooperation and trust. We understood this point and we have already discussed now. Now it can be destructive when it diverts energy, polarizes groups, and deepens differences. Parties take either or position, believing their way is right, and develop negative feeling towards each other. So what happens is, कई बार ऐसा होता है, see, we have already spoken, it can be constructive. Destructive कैसे होगा? When you feel that you have a conflict, you're not talking about it, or maybe even if you have spoken about it, the other person is not understanding and they have taken a position. मैं तो ऐसा ही हूँ, मैं तो ऐसे ही रहूंगा. you do whatever you want to do, because they do not care much. That is when and then what happens is you start feeling negative, you get stressed, you feel the anxiety, which is affecting your mental peace. So that is what happens. It can lead to stress, it can lead to anxiety, you can get panic attacks, you can get other problems also. So it can be as bad as it can be good also. Now, what is the first? We'll talk about what are the adverse costs of conflict. Then we'll be talking about what are the benefits of conflict. Now, conflict within a person causes physical and psychological disorder. Talking about physical is stress, anxiety, depression. Physical क्या हो सकता है? Because of a lot of stress and anxiety, there are people who get heart attack, right? They get stroke. There are so many things related. You get high blood pressure. So it affects you in that. इतने हद तक आपको affect कर सकता है conflict. Then development of discontent. इसका मतलब क्या? You're not happy with yourself. You have all these negative feelings piled up in you. I'm good for nothing. मेरे से ये होगा ही नहीं. मैं कभी कर ही नहीं सकता. I don't know मेरा life कैसा है. You start victimizing yourself. That happens in conflict. Then when you start getting these negative feelings, what happens is, will you be able to work in a proper manner? Will you be able to work efficiently, productively? And अगर आपके अंदर इतना conflict है, आपका relationship भी तो ठीक नहीं होगा ना? Because you are struggling to build a relationship with yourself. How will you build the relationship, a good relationship with others? Relationship में problem आने लगती है. Then when relationship में problem आने लगती है, you don't feel it is, you are not transparent about your feelings. You don't talk to the other person. You do not communicate with other person. This happens also in the offices. When you have this conflict with the other person, might be a team member, you would not want to communicate with that person. Maybe there's some information we would not like to share that information with the other person, which at the end affects the goal of the management of the company. It reduces group cohesiveness. There's no teamwork because team में तो trust ही नहीं है ना. आप trust ही नहीं कर पा रहे हो किसी को, so teamwork होगा ही क्या? Then stress amongst the team lowers the productivity. When the team members are not talking to each other, when they are not collaborative, they're not understanding each other. So of course the productivity will go down now, because they're not passing on the information, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, right? Then talking about status and ego becomes more important than reason and reality. It happens now in our day-to-day life also. If imagine you are with somebody and then like you are two people together. Now this person is your family member. Hypothetical situation. Brothers and sisters. The father favors the brother more. वो गलत भी करे ना फिर भी उसको फेवर करेगा, कोई बात नहीं. And now you cannot say anything because he is your father. He is in a status. You cannot challenge your father, right? कुछ upbringing ऐसा होता है ना हम लोगों का, that जो भी बड़े बोलेंगे you cannot challenge them. You have to accept it. So at times what happens is people use this status, or maybe they become so egoistic that they do not think about the other person, and they don't think about the decision, because of which they end up taking wrong decisions, inappropriate decisions. This happens in an organization also. When your manager, when you two are team members, but your manager has, he feels for the other person much more. He's more connected to the other person. So at times he becomes very partial and biased. Most of the time, the organization has to spend a lot on negotiation and arbitration costs, and also in legal cases. What happens is two team members now they see, okay, the manager, even if he knows that I am right, he is not favoring me. What will I do? At times, I can keep mum about it and say, okay, let it be. I might look for another job somewhere else. The second thing is I'll say no. When I am right, I will sue the company. Let's take a legal action. So what happens is during this legal actions, there's a lot of time and energy and money spent, which the company does not want. Even you do not want in life. Now, infighting among group members overcome group goals. Now you're focusing so much on the conflict that आपका goal ही गायब हो गया. You're not focusing on your goals, which again affects the productivity. Now talking about the best part, the benefit of conflict. The development of intrapersonal and interpersonal skills. You need to manage your own conflict. You have to help yourself to overcome any conflict that you're facing. आपको लोग आके सब बोल देंगे, but at the end of the day, you have to face yourself in the mirror. You have to tell yourself that you're worth it. You have to work on your self-confidence and your self-esteem. And once you have built that, when you're satisfied with yourself by what you are and how you are, you will have a better relationship with the other people. That is what we are calling intrapersonal and interpersonal skills. Now, when you're understanding the other person, when you have a proper bonding with the other person, you have this good intrapersonal skills. What happens is you mutually try to understand what the other person is going through. Okay, he does not agree with me. Okay, he might be having a point. You start respecting the other person. You start respecting their values, their opinions. And because of which a collaboration happens. You become good team members. You collaborate because you're understanding each other's goals, their values, and their opinions. Now, better working relationship. When you are collaborating, you're working in a better atmosphere. You're not thinking about any negativity. There's all positivity around. You're working good with each other, because of which you have improved productivity, because you're focusing on the main goal of the team, of the organization, not of the conflict. Now, because of this, because what happens is you are transparent, you have that trust in the other person, you are thinking out loud and you're telling them, giving suggestions, they are giving you suggestions, because of which there are so much of creativity. You have no idea how much the other person, how creative the other person can be. So you come across a lot of creativity and innovation, the things that you could never think about. It again gives trust amongst colleagues when there's enhanced engagement, as in you're working in a good atmosphere, you're respecting each other and each other's views. Now, there's a better problem solving. These are all interrelated. You have a proper, you understand the other person, you understand what is the problem, hence you solve it properly. Now, again, your communication skills develop because you're listening to the other person, you're speaking to the other person, you're mutually trying to understand the other person, and you also become a good leader because you're listening to the other people. And of course, any company would want to retain its old participants, their old, members, their old employees. So this is what we're talking about, employee retention. When there is a positive atmosphere everywhere, when they are working very well with each other, there will be employee retention. Now, quickly, how's the session going?
Amazing.
Thank you. So now let's watch a video. I thought I'm speaking so much. Let me just give you some time to watch a video also. It would be nice. What do you think is going to happen now? Anyone? Okay, let's watch. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did we see in this video? What happened?
The rabbit and the raccoon made a compromise.
Yeah. So they basically collaborated with each other.
Yeah.
Right? So this is what we're talking about. Managing the conflict. What is conflict management? We'll understand that first. Conflict management involves implementing strategies to limit the negative aspects. We saw what are the negative aspects of conflict and to increase the positive aspects of conflict. Now there are process. So what is the process? First is identification of the problem. जब आपको पता ही नहीं है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है और किस बात को लेके कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, you will not understand कि हम solve उसको कैसे करें. So the main part is you have to identify where exactly the problem lies. And the second is you have to have a discussion where you are putting forward your views. Okay, this is what I think, or maybe these are the reasons why I got upset. And the other person, you have to listen to the other person and let them bring and talk about their views and opinions. And after that, you develop and evaluate options. Okay, you find solutions, different kind of solutions. And then the solution which is more apt for both of you, you take that solution, you resolve, and you agree upon each other. Now, agreement here does not only mean that, a written agreement. It means you're agreeing with each other that, okay, this is the problem. Now we have identified, we have taken out so many solutions. Now, this is the solution which is working best for us. Now, let's agree upon this. Now, ways to settle conflict. There are, again, I'll take an example here. Now, what happens is brother A and brother B are having a conflict over a property. Okay. Now they are trying to negotiate with each other. This is itna property mere paas aayega, itna property tumhare paas jayega. Now they are having a conflict over this piece of land. Now they're not agreeing to each other. Now what happens is they'll say, okay, let's call a mediator. Maybe that mediator will be able to help us. They call one of their uncle who they know though they know A and person B, brother A and brother B very well, and he is not biased. He's not he is very just and fair in his decisions. So they call him and now he says कि okay, आप इतना रख लो, आप इतना रख लो. उन्होंने help कर दिया. But the settlement will not be binding. Now what happens is they're still not happy with it. They said नहीं, हमें तो अभी भी समझ नहीं आ रहा. Let's call somebody else. Now this is called arbitration. When you call an arbitrator, arbitrator is a person who has some legal knowledge about properties, or maybe they have some kind of legal knowledge. Maybe they are retired judge or retired lawyer, and or anybody who's worked in the company in the legal department, so they know. So what they do is they listen to brother A and they listen to brother B. They might sit for 2 or 3 sittings, hear them out, and then come to a conclusion. That conclusion will be binding. That settlement will be binding. You have to agree to the settlement because that person will be just. तो बोलते हैं आउट ऑफ कोर्ट सेटलमेंट कर लेते हैं ना, वही होता है आउट ऑफ कोर्ट सेटलमेंट, arbitration. Now what happens is, again you are not satisfied. You say कि नहीं, हमें तो अब समझ नहीं आ रहा, let's go to the court. I'll see you in court. So this is what we say adjudication, where you take the matters to the court to resolve, And now whatever the court will take a decision, you have to agree upon it. Then you cannot deny. Now, conflict resolution styles. Now, every person has a different kind of styles to resolve a conflict. Now, this theory came in by so there was a person, Ken Thomas and Ralph Kilman. So during 1970, he came up, these two persons came up with this theory while noticing they practiced for 30 years, for about 40 years of research. After about 40 years of research and implementation of researches, they got to know that every person when in a conflicting situation, these are the different styles they adopt while resolving a conflict. Sorry about that. Okay, so these are different styles people follow. So we have cooperativeness in x-axis and assertiveness in y-axis. So what happens is at times people, what they do is they think about only themselves in a conflicting situation. They do not understand what the other person will go through, or if the person will be harmed, because they're only thinking about themselves. Now what happens is cooperativeness is they think about other people's perspective also. That is why these people adopt 5 kind of styles. First is competing, where I've already spoken about. Here, the assertiveness of a person is on the very high scale, where he is very assertive about what exactly he or she wants. They do not care about what the other person might go through or will lose. And their cooperativeness is nil. Then we talk about avoiding. Avoiding is a situation where a person does not want to get into a conflict. They do not like getting indulged in a conflict. They say ki aap dekh lo, I have no say. You do whatever you want to do. They avoid. And this basically happens when you are having a conflict with people you do not care about. Okay. And then we're talking about accommodating. Accommodating is when the cooperativeness of a person is on very high levels. However, the assertiveness is very low. So what they do is they will compromise. They'll say, okay, if this is the thing, they'll choose their battle. Okay, if you want to, take so many shares, you take it. It does not matter to me. It's okay. So they cooperate because now what they do is they are thinking about the other person more rather than thinking about themselves and being assertive about their needs. Then we talk about collaboration. What happens? Collaboration is the best way where you are assertive also and you are cooperative also. Not only are you thinking about what you need or want, you're also considering the fact what the other person wants, and then you brainstorm about new ideas, and then you come to a conclusion, okay, and both the parties benefit from each other. We're talking about compromising. Compromising is when you find middle grounds. You have to compromise on something, the other person have to compromise on something, where the assertiveness and cooperativeness both have to compromise on assertiveness and cooperativeness, and upon some or the other factors, they compromise with each other. Now, coming to the last leg of this session, now we'll talk about the effective ways to resolve conflict. Now, accept conflict. Until and unless you are aware of it and you accept the fact that you are actually having a conflict with somebody, you will not be able to resolve the conflict. So it is very important for you to accept that you have a conflict with the other person. Now, after accepting, you analyze the conflict. When I say analyze, you need to find out. You have to ask yourself and the other person question, where exactly the problem lies? What is the problem? Why did we have a conflict in the first place? Am I exaggerating in my head? You have to ask yourself, you have to probe those questions and you need to figure it out. After that, you have to listen actively. Now, when I say listen actively, what do I mean by saying this? At times, what happens is when we are listening to the other people, we are listening, but then we are just making up, okay, this is what I'm going to say next. Okay, he's asked me this, he's telling me this is what I'm going to tell him after this. But we are not actually trying to understand what the other person is saying, because we are planning on giving the answers to the other person. So when we say listen actively, we mean that you have to listen to the other perspective. You have to understand what the other person is going through, and only then you will be able to, clarify things. Then separate people from problem. It is very common. कभी भी कुछ प्रॉब्लम होता है, we say वो बंदा ही ऐसा है, वो बंदी ही ऐसी है. So what we have to do is we have to focus on the problem and not blame the person. If there's something negative or some conflict happened between us, we say the person is only like that. The person might be a very good person, maybe because of some circumstances or some differences, there was an outburst and there's a conflict. So you need to separate people from the problem which is happening. Do not get defensive. This is a human nature. This is a human nature. What we do is when we are talking to somebody and somebody is trying to tell their viewpoint, we get very defensive. We try to defend ourselves. No, I did this because, no, let me justify myself. You are the reason why we did. So we try justifying our actions. So we should not get defensive. Rather, respect the other person, listen to them, and try to think about what exactly the other person is saying. Avoid the blame game. Again, stop blaming people. You cannot blame a person. You are that because of something, because of you, I have done this. So, it aggravates the conflict and it will never resolve it. Now, agree to disagree. At times, no matter what happens, you do not understand the other person's point of view. So what at times you do is you agree. You say, okay, if you're saying this, okay, I agree with you. So we should understand that and we should implement that in our life. At times you have to agree with people. Use timeout principle. When I say use timeout principle, what do I mean? At times when the conflict, you're not being able to resolve the conflict then and there, despite of working so hard on it, you are not being able to do it, then you take a timeout. You say, okay, let's take some space out and let's get back to this again later and talk about this later. Now, tame your emotions. At times, people, when they're emotional, they stop being rational. So we have to understand and we have to control our emotions. At times, when we are so emotional that we say certain things which we do not mean, however, the other person might really get hurt and he will hold it for the rest of his life. So you have to watch out what you're saying and what you're communicating to the other person. Show that you can compromise. You have to let the other person know that you're willing to listen to them. You're here to compromise and to resolve the conflict. Avoid forming a gang. What happens is at times when you are having a conflict with the other person, you gang up against the other person by including other people of your team or a group. You start talking about them, bad mouthing them, which you should not do. It's not ethical on your part. Do not take things personally. So at times when the other person is not being able to control their emotions or tame their emotions, they say some things which they do not mean. So do not take things personally, because when certain people get angry, they say certain things that they do not mean. So you don't have to take them personally. Place close attention to non-verbal communication. Now, when you're saying that, okay, I agree with you, and then you roll your eyes and your body language is different. It's saying that you are not willing to understand the other person. So you have to watch out, because that will again aggravate the situation. Check your voice and volume. When we are angry or when we are in a conflict, what we do is we raise our volume, we raise voice, we use certain words which we should not. Know when to apologize and forgive. This is mostly important with your partners, in the family, and also at workplace also. When you know that you have done something wrong, it is okay. Own up for it, take the responsibility for it, and apologize. And if somebody is apologizing to you, please forgive. Focus on the present and not the past. Today, if I have a conflict, I'll be talking about this conflict which is present. I will not be bringing up topics from the past or the conflicts which has happened in the past. I will not bring up those situations here and again start the conflict about it now. Remember the importance of relationships. So we always have to remember that relationships are important, are good, and we should always try to maintain a good relationship with everybody. Now, would you all like to know what style do you adopt when you are in a conflict situation?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just share this a questionnaire in your chat box. Okay, so we are already running out of time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a questionnaire with you all so that you can just download it and later you can find out what mode you take or what style do you adopt when you are in a conflicting situation. Okay, thank you. So I'm up for questions. Anybody who has any questions, please tell me. Ask, you can ask.
Guys, you can unmute or you can add in the chat box. Anything will do. So just go with the questions.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, Nikita.
Ma'am, sometimes what happens with some of the personalities are like, you have the same conflict with a particular person on a particular topic all the time, and nothing happens after interval. It repeats. Okay, it might get settled down for that time, but again it would repeat after some time. So what should we do about that?
Who is asking me this question? Nikita.
Yes, ma'am.
Nikita, I'm so glad you brought up this question. So I'll tell you about this. In Scientology, I did a course in Scientology about resolving conflict. So what they say is when with a particular person you're having a conflict, you're trying to resolve it. Every time you settle for some time, but again the new topics are coming in, or maybe again you end up fighting again on the very same topics. So what happens is this is called the third party rule or third party law. What do you mean by third party law? Now, at times, what happens is the conflict actually does not exist only. You both have no conflict. However, there's a third party involved who is creating a conflict between you all, which you do not know. So you maybe क्या होता है ना? At times, I meet somebody outside, okay, and they tell me कि ओ तुम्हारी बहन तो रात को घूम रही थी मैंने देखा. Now that is stuck in my head. I might not, talk about it or anything. And मेरी बहन को किसी ने कुछ और बोला. तुम्हारी बहन तो निकलती ही नहीं है. Right? So we are fighting amongst each other. And if there's any topic which has come up, we are fighting. I said, oh, you don't tell me, you to every time you don't even take care of the house. You're to always out. You're roaming about in the, you're always out only, out of the house. You don't take responsibilities in the house. Only I'm the one who's taking. Then my sister will say, oh, you please shut up. At least I'm taking care of the outside world now. You to just stay in the home. You do nothing only. So this basically, why is this happening? It is because of the third party which is involved. So what Nikita, you have to do is, you both have to sit down. कहाँ से conflict हुआ, किस बात से हुआ, then you have to talk. You have to interrogate एक दूसरे के साथ. ये कभी ऐसी कोई बात हुई? Has anybody told you something regarding me? Anything which is, कोई भी आपका particular topic को लेके बात हो रहा है, you ask. कभी किसी ने कुछ आपको ऐसा बोला? You will be surprised to know आपके family members, आपके अपने friends जो अपने आप को friends बोलते हैं, आपके partners may be, responsible for a conflict which is happening between you all. So kindly read about this also. The third party law by Scientology. You'll get a lot of insight. I hope your Nikita, I hope your question
Yes, ma'am.
answered.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was very informational.
Thank you. Any other questions? Gagan, I hope you have understood and now you know how to manage the conflict. Gagan, Kanika,
Yes, ma'am.
Rishika. So anybody would like to talk about it? How are you going to manage it? Any one step that you will do to manage your conflict?
Ma'am, I have another question. not regarding conflict.
Okay.
Ma'am, I am gonna give my interview as a singer captain too. So could you give me some tips? How can I crack the interview?
We know who is talking. Can't see. Who's this? Simran.
Simran, ma'am.
Okay, Simran, I'll just share my screen. You'll see my information, my mail ID and everything. You will see my mail ID and LinkedIn. You can get in touch with me. I'll help you out personally.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. I'll just share the 1 second. I'll share the questionnaire with you all so that you all can download and you can find out.
Also, guys, I'm sharing the feedback link in the chat box, so do drop in your feedbacks for sure. Okay, so
Yes, it actually motivates us to work more hard and do more work and study more.
guys, there is a chat in the chat box. You can see the feedback link. Please fill your feedbacks, everyone. And anyone having any more questions?
Just 1 second, I'll just share this.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you all got it?
Yes, ma'am.
With this, you'll get to know. 1 second. So this is my you can take a note of this. My email address, my LinkedIn ID, and you can get in touch with me if there's any question you all have. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
For
ma'am.
giving us valuable feedback.
I would really appreciate your feedback if you can fill up the feedback form. Also give testimonials on LinkedIn and also write a mail if you like the session.
Okay,
It
ma'am.
really
Why not?
motivates us. Thank you so much, everyone, and all the very best for your future. I hope you all have understood and got the insight. And I would not say that you will never ever face conflict, but then now you know how to manage your conflict and different styles also. So all the very best to each one of you. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you,
in.
ma'am.
Thank you so
And
much,
on
ma'am.
behalf of Adore and all the members, I would like to thank you, ma'am, for such an insightful session. Hope we have many more such sessions in future. And thank you to all the participants for joining us today. And do provide the feedbacks.
Yes,
Link
please.
is in the chat box.
Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Before leaving, can we have a screenshot for with everyone's videos on? So, guys, please turn on a video for a minute. That would be really great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing it. Yeah, others also, please. It will just take a minute. Okay, so we have these manually. So we'll take a screenshot. So everyone can just smile on 3 and then we can take a picture. So yeah, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Everyone do fill the
Thank you, ma'am.
feedback form before leaving.